They say a ruler should do anything to protect his kingdom. But what if that meant lighting a torch and burning his own crown? In the winter of 1236, the sky above the imperial city of Vladimir glowed an unnatural red. Not from the sunrise, not from the torches of celebration, but from fire. A fire started by the emperor himself. This is the story of an empire pushed to the edge, of a ruler faced with an impossible decision, and the dark, desperate gamble that changed the fate of Eastern Europe. You've heard of the Mongol invasions, but you haven't heard this part. The moment when one emperor chose to sacrifice everything, his city, his people, his very legacy, to stop an unstoppable force. But in doing so, he became the villain of his own story. In the early 13th century, Rus was not a single nation. It was a fractured mosaic of principalities, each ruled by ambitious princes, cousins, and brothers, all vying for power. Among them, the Grand Prince of Vladimir stood above the rest, not because of bloodline alone, but because of where he ruled. Vladimir was more than a city. It was the heart of Rus, the cultural jewel of the East. White limestone cathedrals pierced the skies. Golden domes shimmered in the sun. It was said that when God looked down upon Rus, it was Vladimir he saw first. And then came the horsemen. In 1236, scouts brought news that froze the blood of even the bravest boyars. The Mongols had crossed the Volga. They were not raiders. They were not merchants. They were an army, an avalanche of hooves and steel, led by Batakhan, the grandson of Genghis himself. Cities to the south fell like wheat before a scythe. Ryazan razed, Kalamna destroyed, Suzdal reduced to ash. The Mongols didn't just conquer, they erased. The Grand Prince, Yuri II, had two options, fight or flee. But he made a third choice. At first, the court thought it was madness. Why not defend the capital? Why not fortify the walls, call upon allies, pray to the saints? But Yuri knew the truth. Vladimir was beautiful, but it was vulnerable. The rivers had frozen. The land was bare. And the Mongols were not like any enemy they'd ever faced. Yuri had watched his father die in battle. He had watched his brother's lands fall one by one. He understood something the others didn't. This wasn't a war for territory. It was extermination. And so he made a plan. A dark, desperate plan. He ordered the evacuation of Vladimir. Not just the royal family. Everyone. The boyars. The craftsmen. The clergy. The common folk. Tens of thousands, told to flee into the forests, the hills, the ice-covered wilderness. It was chaos. People wept as they abandoned their homes, their holy sites, their ancestors' graves. And then came the final order. Burn the city, every home, every hall, even the Assumption Cathedral, with its sacred icons and golden altars. At first, the soldiers refused. They begged the prince to reconsider. But Yuri stood firm. If we leave it standing, he said, they will use it against us. If we burn it, they'll find nothing but ash. Some say he cried as the flames rose. Others say he watched in silence. No one really knows, because what happened next would overshadow it all. The Mongols arrived days later, expecting loot, prisoners, glory. Instead, they found smoke, charred ruins, empty streets, no walls to breach, no defenders to kill. But Yuri wasn't done. From the forests beyond, he launched a series of ambushes. Not to defeat the Mongols. That was impossible. But to delay them, confuse them, bleed them inch by inch. And for a while, it worked. The Mongol advance slowed. Winter crept in. Their horses faltered. Their scouts went missing. And then, Yuri vanished. For months, no one knew where he was. Some claimed he had gone mad, living as a hermit in the woods. Others believed he was raising a secret army. But in truth, Yuri had crossed the frozen Volga. He was gathering every prince, every warrior, every exile who would listen. He wasn't saving Vladimir. It was already gone. He was trying to save Rus. In March of 1238, Yuri returned not to reclaim Vladimir, but to face the Mongols in open battle. On the banks of the Sit River, it happened. What historians call the final stand of the North. Outnumbered, outmatched, and armed with desperation, Yuri's forces clashed with Batu Khan's elite. It was a massacre. Yuri was cut down. His body was only identified by the scraps of royal garments on a headless corpse. The Mongols would go on to sack Moscow, Novgorod, and Kiev in the years to come. But they never forgot Vladimir. They never forgave the insult that a prince would deny them their prize, that he would burn his own crown rather than let it fall into foreign hands. And yet, that single act of destruction bought time. It gave Rus the breathing room to retreat, to adapt, to learn the Mongol ways and later resist them. It gave birth to a legend. Yuri II, villain to some, hero to others. A man who ruled an empire and destroyed it with his own hands. But the twist is this. By destroying Vladimir, Yuri may have saved something greater. A future, a resistance, a memory that still echoes in the forests and frozen rivers of Eastern Europe. They say fire consumes, but in Yuri's case, it also protected. So the next time someone tells you history is written by the victors, remember this: sometimes the ones who lose the battle win something far more powerful: immortality, even if it's carved from ash.